The Vakrine Empire had conquered 47 star systems in less than 3 standard cycles. Their fusion-powered dreadnoughts cut through enemy fleets like plasma torches through ice. Their generals celebrated each victory with the ritualistic burning of defeated flags, their war songs echoing through the halls of the Imperial Palace on Vakros Prime. Commander Anna Rees watched the tactical display aboard the UNSC Indomitable with the cold calculation of someone who had studied every one of those victories. The Vakrine had made precisely one mistake. They had assumed humanity would negotiate. "They're holding formation," Louis Chen said from the sensor station, his fingers dancing across haptic interfaces. The young lieutenant's voice remained steady despite the 600 Vakrine warships arranging themselves in their signature crescent attack pattern. Same configuration they used at Altair 6. Same configuration at Kepler 442. Predictable, Anna murmured. She pulled up the battle analysis, numbers scrolling across her neural implant. The Vakrine fought like they had evolved in a 0.6G environment, because they had. Their tactics assumed enemies would tire, would falter under sustained acceleration burns that human pilots called a light workout. The Vakrine had evolved on a world where the deadliest predator was a herbivore that occasionally got territorial. Humanity had clawed its way up from a planet that actively tried to kill them for 3 billion years. "All ships, this is Reeves," Anna said, opening the fleet-wide channel. "Execute Protocol DEATHWORLD 7. Full burn in 30 seconds." The Vakrine fleet commander, a decorated war hero named Thex Rao, watched the human ships with satisfaction. 600 vessels against their pitiful 73. The humans had to know they were doomed. Perhaps they would finally surrender, and the Empire could absorb their industrial capacity. Then the human ships moved. They didn't accelerate at the standard 3G combat burn that was considered the maximum safe limit across known space. They didn't even hold to the 5G emergency burn that would strain most species to their breaking point. The human fleet hit 12G and kept accelerating. "Impossible," Thex Rao's second officer gasped, his breathing apparatus struggling as shock tightened his thorax. "Their crews, they'll be crushed, internal organs." But the human ships weren't slowing. They were accelerating through the Vakrine formation at velocities that shouldn't be survivable. Relativistic kinetic missiles, simple tungsten rods, launched from their tubes at a combined closure speed that turned each projectile into a star-breaking weapon. The first Vakrine dreadnought didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, its atoms scattered across 3 light seconds of space as a rod traveling at 0.4 C passed through it. Louis gritted his teeth against the force trying to liquefy his organs. The military-grade gel pack surrounding his combat chair kept his blood from pooling, kept his brain oxygenated, but it felt like an elephant was sitting on his chest. His vision grayed at the edges. 14 Gs. He managed. Holding. Stable. Anna's jaw was clenched so tight she thought her teeth might crack, but her hands remained steady on the controls. Humanity had spent 200 years training for high-G combat, because they could. Because evolution on a 1G death world had given them robust cardiovascular systems, dense bones, and a stubbornness that bordered on insanity. The Vakrine tried to scatter, but they moved like they were underwater. Their ships, designed for their comfort, couldn't match human acceleration curves. Their crews, evolved for gentler conditions, couldn't withstand the evasive burns that human tactical doctrine considered basic maneuvers. "Launching spread 2, Louis said, his voice strained but professional. Another wave of kinetic impactors screamed from the Indomitable's launch tubes. At their current velocity, even a near miss would be catastrophic for the Vakrine ships. The battle lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. When it was over, 637 Vakrine warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The human fleet had lost 2 destroyers, both from navigation errors, not enemy fire. The Vakrine had literally been too slow to hit them. Anna reduced thrust to a merciful 2G, and the bridge crew let out collective gasps of relief. Louis pulled up the long-range sensors, his hands shaking slightly from the adrenaline crash. "Commander," he said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from Vakros Prime. It's a surrender offer." Anna studied the message. The Vakrine Empire, undefeated for 6 generations, was offering complete capitulation. They would dismantle their war fleet, open their borders, joined the Terran coalition as a protectorate. She thought about the 47 conquered systems, the billions who had lived under Vakreen occupation. She thought about the smug certainty in every Vakreen tactical manual they'd captured, the assumption that their victories would continue forever. Accept their surrender, Anna said, and send them our standard peace terms. Full reparations, war crimes tribunals, the works. Lewis nodded and began composing the response. As he worked, he couldn't help but think about the irony. The Vakreen had built an empire on the assumption that strength meant better technology, bigger ships, larger fleets. They had never considered that sometimes strength meant coming from a world that tried to kill you every single day and learning to push harder because of it. The message went out across the quantum-entangled network, reaching every corner of Vakreen space within minutes. The Deathworlders had spoken. The war was over. Anna leaned back in her command chair, feeling every one of her 43 years in her aching bones. Behind her, Earth continued its slow rotation, its deadly weather patterns and tectonic instabilities and diverse microbial threats producing generation after generation of the galaxy's most terrifying warriors. Not because they wanted to be, but because they had no choice to. In the days that followed, xenoanthropologists would study the battle, analyzing how a species from a high-gravity death world could simply ignore physical limitations that other species considered absolute. The Vakreen military academies would be rebuilt from the ground up, their tactical doctrines rewritten to account for an enemy that shouldn't exist by the standards of civilized warfare. And in quiet corners of the galaxy, other empires reconsidered their expansion plans, looking at their star charts and carefully noting which systems had a blue-green marble orbiting at precisely the right distance from their sun. Those systems, they decided, could stay independent. Some prices were too high to pay.